Have you ever wondered why the greatest breakthroughs in human history often emerge from the darkest moments? Why the most extraordinary people seem to be forged in the crucible of suffering? Why champions are born not in comfort, but in the depths of struggle? There's something profoundly mysterious about pain that most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid. We run from it, numb it, distract ourselves from it. But what if I told you that pain isn't your enemy? What if the very thing you've been running from is actually the key to unlocking powers within you that you never knew existed? My name is Alex, and over the past decade, I've studied the psychology of human transformation, interviewed hundreds of high performers, and witnessed something remarkable. Every single person who has achieved extraordinary things has one thing in common. They've learned to transform their pain into power. They've discovered what I call the hidden architecture of suffering. In this video, I'm going to reveal the three-stage process that allows pain to unlock abilities you didn't know you possessed. I'll show you the neurological mechanisms behind this transformation, the psychological principles that govern it, and most importantly, how you can harness this process in your own life. By the end of this series, you'll understand why your greatest struggles might actually be your greatest gifts in disguise. But first, let me tell you about Sarah. 3 years ago, she was a middle manager at a tech company, living what she called a perfectly ordinary life. Then everything fell apart. Her marriage ended, she lost her job, and within 6 months, she was questioning everything she thought she knew about herself. Most people would call this a breakdown, but Sarah discovered something extraordinary in that darkness. Today, she runs a multi-million-dollar company, has written a best-selling book, and speaks to audiences around the world about transformation. When I asked her what changed, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. I didn't become a different person. I became who I was always meant to be. The pain didn't break me. It broke away everything that wasn't really me. This isn't just one person's story. This is a pattern that repeats throughout human history. The greatest artists, inventors, leaders, and visionaries have all walked through the fire of suffering and emerged transformed. But here's what's fascinating. It's not the pain itself that creates the transformation. It's what happens when we stop running from it and start working with it. So, what exactly happens in the human brain when we experience intense pain or trauma? Why does suffering sometimes destroy people, while other times it seems to awaken superhuman capabilities? The answer lies in understanding three critical stages of what I call the pain to power process. Stage one is what I call the breakdown. This is where most people get stuck. When life hits us with unexpected challenges, our normal coping mechanisms fail. Our carefully constructed identity starts to crack. The story we've been telling ourselves about who we are and how the world works suddenly doesn't make sense anymore. This is terrifying because our identity is how we navigate reality. But here's what neuroscience tells us. This breakdown isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. When our brain recognizes that our current way of being isn't working, it begins a process called neuroplasticity, literally rewiring itself to adapt to new circumstances. The pain signals to our brain that change is not optional, it's necessary for survival. Think about it this way. If you're walking down a familiar path and suddenly hit a wall, you have two choices. You can keep walking into the wall over and over, or you can acknowledge the wall exists and find a new path. Pain is life's way of showing us the wall. Most people keep walking into it, but the people who unlock hidden power, they start looking for new paths. This is why comfort zones are so dangerous. When we're comfortable, our brain has no reason to change, no reason to grow, no reason to develop new capabilities. It's only when we're pushed beyond our limits that we discover what we're truly capable of. The breakdown isn't punishment, it's preparation, but the breakdown is just the beginning. Stage 2 is where the real magic happens, and it's what I call the awakening. This is when something extraordinary occurs in the human psyche. When we stop fighting the pain and start listening to it, we begin to hear messages we've been ignoring our entire lives. Pain has a way of cutting through all the noise, all the distractions, all the stories we tell ourselves. It forces us to confront what's really true, and in that confrontation, something remarkable happens. We start to see possibilities we never saw before. We start to access parts of ourselves that were always there but had been buried under layers of conditioning, fear, and false beliefs. Here's what's incredible. When we're in intense pain, whether physical or emotional, our brain releases chemicals that actually enhance our ability to learn, adapt, and create. Stress hormones like cortisol, when properly channeled, can sharpen focus and increase determination. The same neurochemicals that make us feel terrible can also make us more creative, more resilient, and more capable of breakthrough thinking. But this only happens if we approach the pain correctly. If we try to numb it, avoid it, or pretend it doesn't exist, we miss the opportunity entirely. The people who unlock hidden power are the ones who learn to sit with their pain, to study it, to understand what it's trying to teach them. This is why meditation practices, therapy, and other forms of inner work are so powerful. They teach us how to be present with discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. They help us develop what psychologists call distress tolerance, the ability to experience difficult emotions without immediately trying to escape them. When we develop this capacity, something profound shifts. We stop seeing pain as something that happens to us and start seeing it as information. We begin to understand that our deepest wounds often point to our greatest gifts. The things that hurt us most are often connected to the things we care about most deeply. Take Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychologist. He spent years in concentration camps, experiencing unimaginable suffering. But in that suffering, he discovered something that changed psychology forever. The realization that we cannot always control what happens to us, but we can always choose how we respond to what happens to us. This insight, born from the deepest pain, became the foundation for logotherapy and helped millions of people find meaning in their own struggles. Or consider Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school basketball team. That rejection could have ended his basketball dreams. Instead, it became the fuel that drove him to become arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. Years later, he said that being cut was one of the best things that ever happened to him because it taught him that he had to work harder than everyone else. This is the pattern. Pain reveals what matters most to us. It shows us where we've been settling for less than we're capable of. It forces us to confront the gap between who we are and who we could become. And in that confrontation, we find the motivation to bridge that gap. But here's the crucial part: this process isn't automatic. Just experiencing pain doesn't automatically make you stronger or more capable. Pain can just as easily destroy as it can transform. The difference lies in how we interpret and respond to the pain. The people who unlock hidden power through pain share certain characteristics. They have what researchers call a growth mindset, the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and learning. They view challenges as opportunities rather than threats. They see failure as feedback rather than judgment. Most importantly, they understand that pain is temporary, but the lessons it teaches can last forever. They know that the discomfort they're experiencing now is the price of admission to a better version of themselves. They're willing to pay that price because they understand the alternative: staying stuck in patterns that no longer serve them. This brings us to a critical question. If pain has such transformative power, why do so many people remain stuck in cycles of suffering without ever experiencing breakthrough? Why do some people emerge from tragedy stronger while others are crushed by it? The answer lies in understanding the difference between pain that destroys and pain that transforms. There's a specific way to work with pain that unlocks its hidden power, and there's a way to approach it that only creates more suffering. The difference between these two approaches can literally change the trajectory of your entire life. The key difference lies in what I call the direction of attention. When pain hits us, we have a choice about where to focus our mental energy. Most people make the mistake of focusing on the pain itself. They replay the traumatic event over and over. They ruminate on what went wrong. They get trapped in cycles of self-pity and blame. This is what I call pain inward, and it's a recipe for staying stuck. But there's another way. The people who transform their pain into power practice what I call pain forward. Instead of focusing on what happened to them, they focus on what they can do with what happened to them. They ask different questions. Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "How can I get back to the way things were?" they ask, "How can I use this experience to become who I'm meant to be?" This shift in questioning isn't just philosophical, it's neurological. When we ask empowering questions, we literally change the neural pathways in our brain. We move from the limbic system, which is focused on survival and emotion, to the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for planning, problem solving, and creative thinking. Here's what's remarkable. The same traumatic event can produce completely different outcomes depending on how we direct our attention. Two people can experience identical losses: the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, the failure of a business, and one person becomes bitter and withdrawn while the other becomes more compassionate and driven than ever before. The difference isn't in their circumstances, it's in their focus. The person who transforms their pain has learned to see suffering as raw material for growth rather than evidence of life's unfairness. They understand that pain is information, not punishment. This is why some of the most powerful people in the world have what others might consider tragic backstories. Oprah Winfrey grew up in poverty and faced abuse. Stephen King struggled with addiction and rejection. J.K. Rowling was a single mother on welfare when she wrote the first Harry Potter book. These people didn't succeed despite their pain. They succeeded because of how they transformed their pain. But here's where it gets really interesting. The transformation doesn't just happen once, it's an ongoing process. Every time we face a new challenge, we have the opportunity to apply this same principle. We can choose to let the pain defeat us, or we can choose to let it reveal new levels of strength we didn't know we possessed. This is what I call the compound effect of pain. Each time we successfully transform a painful experience into growth, we build what psychologists call resilience. We develop confidence in our ability to handle whatever life throws at us. We create a track record of overcoming obstacles that serves as evidence for future challenges. Think about it like building muscle. The first time you lift weights, your muscles break down slightly. That breakdown is painful, but it's also the signal for your body to rebuild stronger. The next time you lift, you can handle more weight. The same principle applies to emotional and psychological strength. Every painful experience that we transform becomes proof that we're capable of transformation. It becomes a reference point we can return to when facing new challenges. We can tell ourselves, I've been through difficult things before, and I've come out stronger. I can do it again. This is why people who have overcome significant challenges often seem to have an almost supernatural ability to handle stress. They're not superhuman, they've just built up their transformation muscles through practice. They've learned to trust the process, even when it's painful. But there's something even more profound happening here. When we learn to transform our own pain, we develop the ability to help others transform theirs. We become what I call pain alchemists, people who can take the raw material of suffering and turn it into wisdom, compassion, and strength. This is why the best therapists, coaches, and healers often have personal experience with the problems they help others solve. They understand pain from the inside out. They know what it feels like to be in the darkness, and they know the way out because they've walked that path themselves. This creates a ripple effect. When we transform our pain, we don't just heal ourselves, we become a source of healing for others. We become living proof that transformation is possible. We become beacons of hope for people who are still stuck in their own darkness. This is perhaps the most beautiful aspect of the pain to power process. What starts as personal suffering can become a gift to the world. The very experiences that once threatened to destroy us can become the foundation for our greatest contributions to humanity. But here's the crucial question. How do we actually do this? How do we take the theoretical understanding of pain as a transformative force and apply it practically in our own lives? How do we move from being victims of our circumstances to being architects of our own transformation? The answer lies in understanding the third and final stage of the pain to power process. This is where everything we've discussed comes together into a practical system you can use starting today. This is where the hidden power is actually unlocked, and where ordinary people begin to do extraordinary things. But before we get there, I need to address something important. The process I'm describing isn't easy. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. It asks us to do the opposite of what our instincts tell us to do. When we're in pain, every fiber of our being wants to run away, to numb out, to make it stop. This process asks us to lean in instead. This is why most people never unlock their hidden power. It's not because they're not capable, it's because they're not willing to do what's required. They want the transformation without the discomfort. They want the strength without the struggle. They want the power without the pain. But here's what I've learned from studying hundreds of people who have made this transformation. The discomfort is temporary, but the power is permanent. The pain of staying the same eventually becomes greater than the pain of change. And when that happens, when we finally become more afraid of staying stuck than we are of the unknown, that's when the real magic begins. That's when we enter the third and final stage of the pain to power process, the breakthrough. This is where everything changes, where the caterpillar doesn't just survive the cocoon, but emerges as something entirely new. This is where hidden power is finally unlocked and unleashed upon the world. But here's what's fascinating about this stage. It often happens when we least expect it. You've been in the darkness for what feels like forever. You've been doing the work, sitting with the discomfort, asking the hard questions. And then suddenly, like a switch being flipped, everything clicks into place. The pieces of the puzzle that seemed scattered and meaningless suddenly form a clear picture. Neuroscientists call this the aha moment, when our brain makes new connections that weren't there before. But for someone going through the pain to power process, it's more than just understanding something intellectually. It's a complete rewiring of how we see ourselves and what we believe we're capable of. This is when people discover they can do things they never thought possible. The woman who was terrified of public speaking suddenly finds herself commanding rooms full of people. The man who struggled with confidence becomes an unstoppable force in his industry. The person who felt broken and worthless realizes they have wisdom that can heal others. What's happening here isn't magic. It's the natural result of the process we've been walking through. When we stop running from pain and start learning from it. When we redirect our attention from victimhood to growth. When we build our resilience through repeated practice, we create the conditions for breakthrough. But here's the secret that changes everything. This power was always there. The pain didn't create it, it revealed it. Every human being has untapped potential lying dormant within them. Most people never access it because they never face the circumstances that force them to dig deeper. They live their entire lives using only a fraction of their true capabilities. Pain is the chisel that carves away everything that isn't essential, everything that isn't truly you. It strips away the masks, the pretenses, the false beliefs about your limitations. What remains is your authentic self, and your authentic self is far more powerful than you've ever imagined. This is why I say that pain isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It's the strict instructor who pushes you beyond what you think you can handle because it knows you're capable of more. It's the uncomfortable truth that forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you could become. The people who unlock hidden power through pain understand this truth. They don't just endure suffering, they extract value from it. They mine their pain for insights, lessons, and strength. They refuse to let their struggles be meaningless. They transform their wounds into wisdom, their setbacks into comebacks, their breakdowns into breakthroughs. So here's my challenge to you. The next time pain enters your life, And it will, because pain is part of the human experience. Don't run from it. Don't numb it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, ask it what it's trying to teach you. Listen to its message. Look for the hidden gift it's offering you. Remember Sarah, who I mentioned at the beginning? She told me something else that day that I'll never forget. She said, I used to think my pain was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Now I realize it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it showed me who I really was underneath all the fear and doubt. Your pain is not your punishment, it's your initiation. It's life's way of preparing you for something greater than you've ever imagined. The question isn't whether you'll face pain. The question is whether you'll let it transform you or whether you'll let it defeat you. The choice is yours. The power is yours. It always has been. Pain is just the key that unlocks it. Are you ready to turn that key? If this video has opened your eyes to the transformative power of pain, I want to hear from you. Share your story in the comments below. What challenge are you facing right now that could become your greatest teacher? What pain are you ready to transform into power? And if you're ready to dive deeper into this process, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. In my next video, I'll be sharing the specific techniques and strategies that the highest performers use to accelerate their transformation. You won't want to miss it. Remember, your greatest struggles are not obstacles to your destiny, they're the pathway to it. The pain you're experiencing right now isn't trying to break you, it's trying to make you let it.